The operation had gone well.
Alright everyone, we're back with part 2, so yeah, we're actually at the time where
But we had to ban him.
we're at, so yeah.
Attempt flight.
So
An
yeah.
experiment kept secret until now. Maybe the diesel engine was to be the first biofused locomotive used on the railway.
We fueled her up and everything seemed fine. Then things got out of hand.
The diesel began to burn her internal organs. Everything organic in the engine was soon burning.
Have you ever heard a locomotive scream in pain? We tried rinsing out the fuel tank with water, but by then it was too late.
Mavis's body would be kept under lock and key indefinitely. In an unexpected U-turn, Sir Topham Hatt would ban fueled engines from being used on the island. Harold was never told why he couldn't fly, but the decision would keep him alive, if only for a little while longer. In fact, unknown to the outside world, there had been many failed biofusion experiments.
That fat bastard kept the accidents a secret, and legal disclaimers had to be signed by anyone being biofused, so there'd be no legal action taken if anything went wrong.
This footage shows engines being displayed to tourists during the off-season. Many of these engines were failed biofusion experiments and were too ill to work or were already dead. They had to put a stop to that though.
With all accidents happening, everyone started asking the same thing. Why had Thomas, the first engine, worked so well?
Despite all the troubles the other engines had, Thomas had worked fine, seemingly oblivious to the other engines' problems and accidents. Keeping their problems a secret from the outside world, Sodor Research began selling the technology to other countries in multi-million-pound deals. These countries would have less qualms about the use of fuel engines, and even the modern electric trains. Even failed biofused engines were being displayed publicly in what would become a kind of freak show.
I love that part.
To his
Now
horror,
I love that part.
Professor Hans Goetze saw what this was leading to, slavery of engines, and immediately resigned.
Now that's scary.
His father, Wilhelm, would go one step further.
Nice music. I got a bad feeling about this part. Is this weird? Oh no.
Professor Wilhelm couldn't come to terms with what was happening to his engines, and took the only course he thought he could take.
That fat got a load of us rail staff over to his house to clean up after the body was taken away. You should have seen it. Sawdust everywhere. It took us days.
But such attempts to keep the incidents on Sodor a secret were short-lived, after a very public accident.
Gordon paid an enormous amount to be Sodor's first 462 configuration engine, much bigger than any other engine at the time. We were terrified that fat shite would make us fire up that huge engine.
We were shocked to discover he had insisted on being able to work on the railway. So, one night, after the regular staff had finished for the day, Fat some of the rail staff and I fired up the engine. As usual, these experiments were filmed. This footage has never been broadcast before.
Dr. Ruth and I filmed it all.
It might be a bit shaky. It was handheld. At first, Gordon complained about the heat. Then that turned to pleas to douse the fire.
But the fat bastard held us back. He wanted to see what would happen.
He argued he had put a lot of work into Gordon, and the chances to get him working were too great an opportunity. He was
Now that's
literally coming
scary.
from the inside. By the
This
time
might be
they
it.
were allowed to act, it was too late.
I wasn't as near to him as some of them. All I could do was run. I was lucky to get away with some singed clothes. Others weren't so lucky.
The fateful few hours following the accident would seal the fate of Sodor Research. The fat stopped us trying to put out the fire, insisting that any evidence would fall back on us.
He kept repeating, "This was all your fault. You knew the dangers. You're legally to blame." He stopped us calling for ambulances or the fire brigade.
We told him, these are injured people here. They're going to die unless we do something. But he kept saying, no one from the outside can come in. No one can see this.
Finally, someone suggested we airlift them to hospital. Harold was banned from flying for his own safety, but we thought the risk was worth it.
Fueling Harold was a nervous experience. Would he have the same reaction Mavis had?
We all breathed a sigh of relief and loaded the injured people aboard. Then it all went wrong.
Harold's engine had worked fine, but what no one realized was most of Harold's lower extremities were permanently fused to his propeller system. As Harold's rotor blades began to spin, vital organs would be drawn into the motor and tear him apart from the inside.
Well, now there was no covering it up. The smoke could be seen all morning, but news people were here in an instant. We were told to close gates and start clearing up the mess ourselves, with some help.
Henry Thierry was the only 420 gauge engine on the island. A large engine that had been working on the railway regularly, he had become popular among tourists and the locals. Henry was called into the yard to help tidy the mess. Working mostly at night, he would cart away the wreckage under cover of darkness.
We had to work quickly and quietly. Henry would cart wreckage from the yard away to the sea. Then one night, the points were set wrong and we were diverted to another shed.
Henry had inadvertently been sent to shed number 17, where Thomas had been biofused into a tank engine and had subsequently been declared out of bounds.
It was dark and these sheds all looked the same. I unlocked the doors and Henry rolled in. I didn't see what Henry saw, because as soon as he put his head through doors, he bolted and reversed out.
Keith locked the shed up without seeing what was inside, but Henry had seen it all.
We wouldn't even dare talk about that shed, more than our job's worth.
But Henry had decided to speak up and confront Sir Topham Hatt. That night, he arrived at the railway controller's office.
I don't know what was said in there, but there were raised voices at times. They had a shouting match for 10 minutes. Then Henry left, back to the shed.
By
Oh, I
pure
think this is the
chance, he
part
was sent
where
back
this is
to
gonna
the
get
same
more
shed as
scary for
Thomas that
everyone.
night. And with
I
one
think.
sentence, he sealed both their fates.
Henry only said one thing to him: stay away from shed 17. The next day, the fat had a new job for him.
Wow, more news. Road in action.
The Flying Keeper route ran through the night, delivering fish from the docks to the mainland, across the highest altitude line in the country.
That whole line was treacherous at best, but when Henry was put on there, in the middle of winter, it was a death trap.
In 1970, fish had started being delivered by road to the mainland. It was safer and more cost-effective, and the line was declared redundant. Dangerous and unnecessary, it came as a shock to the islanders when it was reopened.
That fat shite always hated Henry. He didn't like his cheerful manner, and he clearly had other lifestyle choices when he was a human. Fat wanted Henry away from the other engines, and Kipper Run was a death sentence.
On the night of February the 8th, 1983, Henry had only been on the Kipper Run for a week. The following incident would be made into a book and later recreated in the television series.
This is the train the railwaymen call the Flying Kipper.
Can you believe they put it in a kid's story? Of course, that fat f***er changed quite a few of their facts.
They couldn't know the points from the main line to a siding were frozen, and the home signal should have been set at danger, but snow had forced it down.
As the train approached the most treacherous part of the line, unnoticed to Henry, his driver and fireman, the points had diverted them to the adjoining siding and right into the path of another train.
Now that's scary.
Henry's driver and fireman had jumped clear before the crash.
In fact, Al and Barry died from their injuries. Slowly, in snow, the poor bastards.
By midday, the recovery operation was underway, and Sir Topham Hatt had arrived.
Cheer
We're
up,
almost
Henry,
done.
It wasn't your fault.
We'll probably split
Ice
it
and
up
snow caused
to
the
2 parts of
accident.
3.
These images from a train spotter's camera were taken the evening before and were successfully covered up by the Sodor Railway Board for 10 years.
There was a railway spike in points, blocking them. Of course, that had disappeared by the time we got there.
I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines.
Crew, we all knew what that meant.
They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox.
Crewe was, at the time, one of only 2 scrap metal yards in the UK capable of handling and recycling organic material as well as engine parts.
You'll feel a different engine and won't need special coal anymore.
With those few words, he'd sentence Henry to death.
Won't that be nice? Yes, sir, said Henry doubtfully.
Everyone knew he wouldn't see him again, and everything was sewn up nice and neat for that fat f***.
Now that's
As
scary.
news got out about Henry's accident, it didn't take long for Thomas to realise Henry had been disposed of because of what he knew.
The next evening, Thomas had been put on his own for the night at Knapford Station. As his driver and fireman left, under what was left of his own steam, he set off for the Sodor Research Complex. He had a small amount of burning fuel in his firebox, but he was mostly moving under his own strength. It took Thomas 3 hours to get to the complex, the effort to get there nearly killing him. Thomas arrived at midnight. With no one around, he made his way to the shed where he was created. What he found was the answers to his questions, and many others. Since Sodor Research had become producing biofuels vehicles, the world had asked, why had the first biofusion operation worked so well, but nearly every operation since had failed? Sadly, Thomas found the reasons inside.
Get ready, everyone. This might be most scarier for you and me.
Thomas had never been the first operation. He hadn't even been second.
What shed number 17 contained was evidence of several attempts to create a tank engine.
If he could do that to an engine, why not duplicate
These
it
had been
into
early
a
tests
human?
made by people with no experience.
Because an
of
engine's going to take like
experiment
more
on this
time,
scale.
other than the examples that show right there.
Ill-planned and unprepared,
He could have
these
just
procedures
duplicated it into a
used DNA from
human, but that's
Thomas
another story for
and
another
had been
time.
as much the real Thomas as the tank engine the world had come to know and love.
To us, Thomas the Tank Engine had been the Thomas we all knew as a boy. Part of the family the whole island's population had known and respected since Wilhelm first arrived.
In actuality, this tank engine was no more the real Thomas than all the failed creations made over the 12 months before. This Thomas had all the human Thomas's
Sorry about that, I was
memories
gonna get the
and
charger to the phone.
experiences. He had learned
Well,
what
let me
Thomas
just get
had
it right
learned.
there.
Known Thomas had known, but so
Oh,
had
the
all
other side.
the previous failures. Wilhelm and Hans Goetze had to learn through trial and error how to bring
Alright, we're gonna
Thomas
stop
back
from there.
from the dead.
Bye.
The follow-
Alright, we're gonna stop from there. We'll see you guys in the next part where we're gonna find out the true beginning. I'll see you guys then. Bye.